Good morning, class. It's Mr. Shermack here. Sorry, we aren't going to be hosting our Zoom call today or our Google Meet call. I have a teacher training to go to, so I'm going to record this lecture. And also, there's a TED Talk Ed puzzle to complete for today's lesson. All right. And so these notes begin on page 9. And so we've been talking about land and water use. And something that we're going to look closer at is agriculture and farming. And so this section of Unit 5 is called the Green Revolution and GMOs, which is genetically modified organisms, right? And I showed you this map before, and we know that a good portion of the land in the U.S. is used for farming, right? And so that's why it's an important topic to cover in this unit when studying land use throughout the U.S. and across the globe. So this unit is titled The Green Revolution, and it's not green because it's environmentally friendly. They're calling it green because, well, that's the color of plants, and what it really should be called is the Industrial Agriculture Revolution, because there's nothing really green about it, right? It's actually the opposite of environmentally friendly. You could see from this picture, this is what farming looks like in our modern society, right? You have these huge machines, and on average, these machines cost about between $300,000 and $500,000. So you're looking at $500,000 for each of these combines, and so we'll talk more about that. Just the upfront investment cost to farm and how that's affected farmers, and now we see only huge corporate farming and no real the smaller farms have been just kind of driven out. So that's called mechanization and standardization. Mechanization is just the process of everything being converted to where we need machines, right? And standardization is just the monocropping and just the standard practice of farming that makes it super cost effective, right? So doing this helps maximize profits, and but to do this you need that upfront investment cost, and not a lot of small farming operations have this amount of money to compete with these large corporate farms, right? Each one of these, let's say, is $500,000. Well, every two is $1 million. So we got $1 million there, $1 million there, $1 million there, $1 million there, $1 million there. And so, you're looking at several millions of dollars here in this farming operation, just in farming equipment, not all the other expenses, right? So an interesting thing to look at with our current farming practice is the energy subsidy. Looking here, we know that fossil fuel energy and human energy input per calorie of food produced is not in our favor. So in the US, we input about 10 calories to get 1 calorie. Okay? And so that's not a very good return of investment. And the reason for this is because of all of this that goes into our current farming practices, right? Current farming practices require pesticides and fertilizers and tractors and machines and irrigation, transportation, right? That wasn't always the case. We didn't always need fertilizers and pesticides because our crops were more diverse. We didn't always need more tractors and machinery because smaller farms were using different types of ways of tilling the land and recovering the crops. They didn't always have this heavy machinery. And we know that this heavy machinery requires a lot of fossil fuel use. Okay. An interesting pyramid to look at here is, why does a salad cost more than a Big Mac? Well, take a look at how the federal government is subsidizing farming. And take a look at that, those two different pyramids there. But the green revolution, like I mentioned, is not really an environmental revolution where it's good for the environment. It's just the shift to mechanization, fertilization, irrigation, and the improved crop varieties over the last 100 years. And that's just, genetically modifying organisms, right? Scientists have made huge advancements in genetically modifying organisms, and our corn, our soy, and all the different crops that we harvest. So this is the ed puzzle that you're going to watch. And mechanization, like I mentioned earlier, just this slide is showing you that how the average cost has forced a lot of small farmers out of farming and forced to sell their land to bigger farming operations. And so this graph shows how the average farm size, this data is only from 1990 to 1997, but obviously if we were to look at this trend line as it continued into the 2000s and all the way to our current year, 2021, you would imagine this line would continue to grow. And the average farm size, started at 150 acres. Now, only 7 years later, from 1990 to 1997, it's at 500 acres. And so I would predict that average farm size has gotten even larger since then. Here is the average farm size by region. So if you look at the US compared to other countries, and monocropping. So monocropping is the large planting of a single species or variety. And there's some benefits and drawbacks to this. Some of the benefits are it's very productive, right? Farmers can specialize on, become specialized farmers, and they can specialize their land for that specific crop. And it's the most economical, right? This is where they will maximize their profits. The drawbacks, though, are soil erosion, higher vulnerability to pest, and loss of diversity, and the lack of predators, right, which goes along with the loss of genetic diversity. That's it for the Green Revolution lecture. If you have any questions, write them down, and we'll talk about them tomorrow in class.